hanging blood-stained signs across Israel, delivering packages to the doorsteps of civilians containing the heads of severed animals. These are just some of the tasks that at least 3 Israeli citizens have allegedly carried out for Iranian intelligence agents.
Well, in recent months, Iran has attempted more than 200 cyber phishing attacks on senior Israeli officials. The Shin Bet security agency says these phishing attempts tried to gain personal details on security officials.
Now, 7 Israelis have been arrested on suspicion of spying for Iran.
Iranian hackers gained access to email accounts of senior Israeli officials in an attempt to steal personal information.
Israeli authorities say they have uncovered multiple spy rings in recent months.
A bunch of very strange things happening in Australia.
Another overnight vandalism attack in the heart of Sydney's eastern suburbs.
A violent act of destruction.
It now seems that a number of these attacks were carried out by local street thugs, at least some of whom were being paid to carry them out by the government of Iran.
These were extraordinary and dangerous acts of aggression orchestrated by a foreign nation on Australian soil.
Hi everyone, how are you? Thank you for having us here. So this video you just saw is not just some abstract representation of different types of threat we've seen, but also something that is actually quite personal to us. I also received a death threat this year in the mail in the form of this extremely corny Judaica memorial candle. I'm a journalist. I focus on disinformation. My name is Omer Benjakob. I write for Haaretz, Israel's only remaining decent newspaper, and I do investigations on cyber and national security. And together with Itay, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Itay Cohen. I'm happy to be here. I doing research with Palo Alto Networks Unit 42. I'm an activist, and most of my free time is dedicated to political and social activism, mainly focusing on helping animals.
I wasn't supposed to receive a death threat. I don't know, like it's like cyber, you know, you do this disinformation reporting, you don't think someone is going to send you a death threat. It's all OSINT, it's not supposed to be about you, but yet this kind of happened. And my reporting on disinformation got very real. And that's kind of the theme of our talk today, about how disinformation and stuff that we historically think about as limited to the digital space actually metastasizes and penetrates into our reality. And my death threat appeared both via courier and via WhatsApp. So in tandem to this very, very corny Judaica memorial candle, I also received, it came together with a note with a WhatsApp number, when I contacted it, actually told me, if you don't stop doing what you're doing, your wife will have to use this memorial candle. It's, I think, a very interesting Iranian bias that they assume that all Israelis are religious, and if I were to die, my wife would light a memorial candle, which is something I highly doubt, but for the sake of argument, that's what they were hoping. And when I dug into this number, I discovered something very interesting. The same number that sent me this package was also one of the numbers used to run a very large disinformation network that 3 weeks prior to that I had exposed in Haaretz. And when you expose disinformation networks, you also do an ethical disclosure. And I reached out to Meta and Telegram and exposed all these accounts and said for over 2 years, this group of Telegram users and WhatsApp users were running fake accounts that tried to incite the Israeli public. They were doing disinformation campaigns on the left and on the right. And I want you to take them down because we think they're inauthentic. And then they took them down. And this same account is the one that sent me this package. And it took us a long time together, me and Itay, to realize that disinformation is not solely a digital threat. And this is kind of the theme of our talk today, that influence has entered your chat and your streets. It's based on a very interesting process that took place in Israel the past 2 years, which is that our security services for the first time ever started to talk about social media. And our secret security service, the Shin Bet, actually exposed since October 7th 23 different cases of Israeli nationals who were enlisted via Telegram and run by Iran as agents in Israel. We want to try to talk about this because I think historically this has been kind of siloed off. We thought about these different cases as either disinformation or influence, and now we want to present a more unified framework.
Exactly. So, thank you, Omer. Like Omer just said, I think that these cases forces us as a security community to ask questions that we often avoiding. So, as human beings, we love to think in silos, right? So influence operations, that's just trolling, that's noise. Cyber attacks, that's for stealing data. Kinetic threats, maybe that's for the counterterrorism folks, right? But what if this framework of thinking has some problems? What if it is the same threat actor behind all of these together? And this is where we believe that we need a new language, a new way to think about it. And this is where we, Omer and I, wanted to conceptualize this into a new framework of thinking that we call hybrid threat actors, or HTAs. Now, HTAs blend actions from the domain of physical actions and cybernetic cyber actions into a unified and continuous attack chain. So, instead of thinking in different separated silos, maybe we should start and think like something of a unified cycle. And while conventional APTs, like we all know, focus on long-term infiltration for espionage or maybe disruption, HTAs are state-sponsored group or proxy entities related to states that combined these physical and cyber actions into this continuous chain. And we will not get into the full definition right now. We will complete it later. But for now, what I want you to keep in mind that whenever we say HTAs, we speak about those threat actors that move seamlessly between these silos that we created. All right, so in order to start and speak about what HTAs are, what is the hybrid threat model, I want to start and give some cases of the Israeli agents recruited by Iran. And so meet Vladislav Viktorson. He was among the first Israeli agents to be arrested for working for Iran. And the truth is that this is personal to me because I personally knew Vladislav back when we were teenagers. And at the time, I looked a little bit different and was mostly listening to a very type of soundtrack. And so, to be honest, when I heard that he was arrested, I wasn't really surprised because he was a strange dude. And for Vlad, it all started in a Telegram group called, literally, I'm not joking, the Stoners' Hearts. And into this group slips an Iranian agent, and under a fake profile, of course, and offers what seems like the world's easiest gig. Spray paint some graffiti, send me proof, and get paid in crypto. And Vlad, he bites. For $20 a slogan, he's out in the city spraying political statements on the wall. But then things started to escalate. Now it's not only graffiti anymore, he's asked to scout political protests, to go and drop off cash at bus stops, to pick up ammunition and weapons from different pickup spots. And his Iranian handler asks him, get this, to go out and find homeless people, pay them $20 a pop, and recruit them to work for Iran. And so, very quickly, Vlad is out there in the city, 4 a.m. in the morning, pouring gasoline on parked cars and setting them on fire. Each task comes with a bigger payout, of course, and each task becomes darker. And then comes the final ask. Go and assassinate a public figure for $100,000. $40,000 if you settle for a cheaper hit. Now, who will be the target and how did the Iranian operators knew their exact location? We will touch on it later. But at this point, the Israeli police and Israeli security service are onto Vlad and arrested him and his girlfriend. And he's behind bars right now, of course. And our next agent is Moti Maman. Now, Maman is a 70-something Israeli businessman that got into debt and was chasing easy money. Now, unlike Vlad, he wasn't recruited on Telegram, and he was actually smuggled into Iran, not once, but twice, to meet real Iranian intelligence officers, flesh and blood, and discuss assassinating public figures in Israel, including the prime minister, the defense minister, head of security service, and so on. Now, the thing is that our Moti here is not some kind of a political person. He is not anti-government protester or anything like that. He's just a colorful old man that got into debt. And his spy story has moments that feels like were taken maybe from, I don't know, a dark comedy or something like that. For example, at the night he was about to be smuggled into Iran to meet Iranian intelligence officers, he sent his wife a voice note on WhatsApp promising her that he will bring her perfumes from inside Iran, which is an enemy country, right? And his wife replied with the following voice note on WhatsApp that we were able to obtain, and I will play it for you. It will be in Hebrew with heavy Russian accent, but you will have subtitles. So that's how delighted she was.
וואו, הלוואי, בעזרת השם, אמן, אמן, אמן. כן, תביא לי איזה בושם טובים. אבל לא ריח סתם של אישה, פרחים, שיט כזה. אני אוהבת ריח של סיגריות, קפה, כמו אוניסקס, אתה יודע, כזה ערביק ריח, או לא יודעת, תקנה משהו חזק ויקר.
All right, so who doesn't like their perfumes with the smell of cigarettes and black coffee? But jokes aside, this is serious. It was asked to assassinate public figures. So we need to somehow balance this thing of having some very weird and cringe and funny stories with serious implications.
The two examples that Itay just presented to you are two out of these 23 different cases that the Israeli Shin Bet made public and that I've obtained the different indictments about them. And I want to work through these cases because I think what Itay showed you is that they run a very big spectrum, right? You have Victorson, this weird kind of guy who's paid to pay homeless people $20 a pop to start random fires. And on the other hand, you have this Maman who's like, this I think actually sounds like a spy, right? He's going to Iran, he's being operated. And I want to work through some other cases that help flesh out what we call this HTA typography, or different use cases. And Eden Dabas is actually one of the most interesting cases we have out of this 23, because Eden Dabas is a young guy, and one of his missions was not just operating not just doing this kind of same missions that Vlad got, right? So he was supposed to do posters and graffiti and this kind of stuff, which I can say is in itself interesting because it actually continued Iran's information warfare in the streets. So anyway, the posters and this graffiti stuff followed up on and amplified disinformation activity, right? So they were doing something in the groups, they were saying, the left is treacherous, the right is betraying Israel, whatever. Then we see the same things repeat themselves physically. But it's not only that. Eden was also charged with setting up digital infrastructure for Iran. So, for example, he set up, this is the actual Telegram group he set up for his Iranian operators. He set it up using a phone and SIM card he had purchased on their instructions. The group is called Tzva Ha'am, the People's Army, and it's supposed to be this very kind of populist group. And not only was he active in setting up this group, he was also active in buying other SIM cards and setting up other fake accounts. Again, as part of this kind of enlistment pipeline. What makes Eden so interesting as a character is that he shows that disinformation also works both ways. He lied to his Iranian operators. He was smart enough to realize that they have no way to actually check what he's doing, so he would just tell them, yeah, I did this, I finished this, and so he would get payment. And this idea that it's almost this kind of like, there's something almost mimetic about his logic, right? He's trying to enlist other people, and he's also doing disinformation, but he's also lying to his operators about what this kind of disinformation can kind of do. And I think what's interesting about that is it shows that there is this, not just a spectrum, but an entire kind of world of operations that happen on the border between influence, reality, and enlistment. Another really interesting case, which kind of shows the other end of the spectrum, is what we call the Haifa 7, which are now facing trial. This is a group of 7 Azerbaijani immigrants, so they're emergés from Azerbaijan to Israel, who were all recruited as part of a single ring. They're now all being charged of very, very serious national security crimes, contact with a foreign agent, and they did over 600 missions for the Iranian operators that are, I think, quite well into the space of what we would call actual spying. So again, these are people that were enlisted via social media, recruited through this Telegram pipeline, and then sent out into the world. But they weren't sent out into the world just to troll people like Eden. They weren't set out just to set up other trolling infrastructure, but also to actually collect information. Among these 600 missions was just trying to penetrate air bases, to try to document military sites. And we're starting to see a very kind of dangerous pipeline in which it's not just influence and kind of, undermining the discourse or even trying to create the semblance that society is penetratable, but actually doing very dangerous stuff, like with Moti. We call this the clicks to chaos pipeline. There's a very specific logic here that follows through. These are usually people being enlisted that are chronically online. In the Israeli case, and I think this is not rare, these are also people who are chronically on Telegram. So it's a very specific kind of arena that, at least in Israel, is not actually popular or became popular quite recently. These are people that tend to be socially isolated, financially desperate, need work that might not fit into the kind of public profile of work you can get legally. In the Israeli case, many of them are immigrants or from marginalized groups. And people with criminal records, again, people who don't have the ability necessarily to work and participate in our physical society in the same way that we can. And we also see a very kind of specific MO of enlistment and operation. So initially we see contact through these groups, disinformation groups. People who are consumers of disinformation or active in disinformation groups are then also exposed to job offers, fake job offers. Then through the initial contact they start getting minor tasks. It could be opening other groups, it could be posting memes, it could be taking photos, and then it slowly escalates. Demands for arson, sabotage, and surveillance, which at times also led and metastasized into actual assassination plots.
Thanks, Omer. Right, so far we mostly discussed the on-the-ground actions conducted by these very agents. And we touched a little bit about Telegram, but that's not hardcore cyber, right? And I want us to think about, I want us to speak about how these cyber actions actually related to all these stories that we saw. And I think that now we can actually close this cyber and kinetic circle and understand how it manifests itself in reality. But first, let's just acknowledge the scale. The Israeli Security Service reported that Iran has orchestrated around 300 very targeted attacks, cyber attacks that is, against individuals, not organizations, but individuals, including journalists, academics, politicians, security officials, and so on. And they were specifically after stealing highly personal details, namely schedules, travel information, home addresses, even family info, all in order to collect enough information that will enable physical assassination and attempts to assassinate individuals by these recruited cells. And one case that demonstrates this kinetic to cyber link is the case of the Nevatim airbase. Nevatim is among the largest airbases military airbases in Israel, and obviously it makes it a very important military asset. Now, in October 2023, a cyber persona calling itself Soldier of Solomon reported that they hacked and leaked the security cameras from inside the Nevatim airbase. They shared this data on Telegram, but then, however, analysts from Microsoft Threat Intelligence Center showed that this footage was not from Nevatim airbase at all. It was from a civilian street, coincidentally called Nevatim Street, in a city which is nowhere near the airbase. But the technical fact almost did not matter, because the psychological effect was real. It created doubt, it created fear, it created the conception that, or the perception that Iran could peer into Israel's most protected sites. And remember this cell of 7 Azerbaijani Israeli people that were arrested and that Omer spoke about? Well, among their tasks, they were assigned with going and monitoring and taking pictures and surveilling the Nevatim airbase. And they were also tasked with tracking the commander of this airbase and his son in order to assassinate them. They failed to do it, but then in October 1st, 2024, Iran launched a major missile strike against Israel Nevatim airbase, and it was among the sites that were hit, like you can see in the videos. And guess who was among the first to publish these videos from the hit? Well, it was the Soldiers of Solomon, Iranian cyber persona on Telegram that shared this information. And I think that this shows how cyber psychological operations have helped in shaping the perception, and then followed by sustained human surveillance to monitor and build targeting data, and eventually culminating into a kinetic strike. And it's very tempting to look at each of these incidents as separate, and I can understand why, but at the end, it's all part of the same chain that works together in combination, and in a way, same of the attack chain that the Iranians tried to do, and reinforcing each other. Now, the second thing, second case that I want to show you is a little bit different. In early 2025, this year, Iranian group Handala has leaked an Israeli database of civilian weapons or weapon owners. And this database contained the names of civilian owning weapons, their home addresses, how much ammunition they have, what type of weapons they have, and very importantly, where do they store their weapons and how. Now, Israeli authorities have since reported that these recruited cells were also tasked with going and collecting weapons and ammunition from different pickup spots. And now, while we don't have any concrete evidence to show that this database was used in order to source the weapons for these recruited agents, we think that it provides some kind of a roadmap for if you want to steal weapons, where you can do it. And it also provides a list of people that own weapons, so Iran could find maybe vulnerable individuals that have access to weapons and try to recruit them. An interesting pattern happening with shows up in Iran phishing and impersonation work against Israeli targets. And the Shin Bet publicly said that the Iranian target specific individuals that, and they were after their schedule information and travel data and stuff like that, all in order to eventually cause physical harm. And cyber company Checkpoint Research published this Iranian campaign where Iranian operators targeted high-value individuals, they hacked their accounts, they got access to their inboxes, and then hijacked ongoing threads in their email and made use of this trust channel that was built in these ongoing conversations in order to lure new victims abroad in order to assassinate them. And the Israeli authorities have warned explicitly about this type of method. Iranian operators trying to entice Israelis abroad for meetings that end in abduction or assault. And this is something really serious. And none of these assassination attempts actually succeeded, but at one point it was very, very close. At late 2023, former Defense Minister Moshe Yalon was targeted for assassination during his morning run in Tel Aviv. And a local cell planted a bomb, working for Iran, of course, planted a bomb along Yalon's running route in Tel Aviv. The bomb exploded prematurely, but maybe due to technical failure, and nobody was hurt, thankfully. But the planning was meticulous. In some way, they knew exactly where it would run, when, and how often it's doing it, and its exact route. And Israel's Shin Bet security service explicitly said that these attacks were after these scheduled data, the daily routines, their travel data, and this type of information, exactly the type of info and intelligence that will tell you where someone will run every morning at 7 a.m. And this is not exclusive only to the Iranian and Israel conflict. No, the US authorities have warned that Iran are targeting officials in the administration. And John Bolton, former national security advisor, specifically said that access to somebody's schedule could be very, very helpful to the Iranians in planning an attack and an assassination. In fact, he said that Iran specifically targeted him and were after his schedule and travel data. And other officials said that the cyber attack is not separated from the physical harm. It's actually the first step towards an assassination plot. And this is not even exclusive to Iran. We can learn about how this hybrid threat model matures if we look at Russia as well, specifically GRU Unit 2955. Now, this unit is responsible for political coups, for assassination attempts, for poisoning attempts, and sabotage in general. And in 2020, they started to adopt cyber operations to their tradecraft as well. And bunch of intelligence agencies around the world, if your country is not there, you're not cool. Well, mine is not there. These released a joint advisory saying that this Russian unit has expanded the threat graph to do cyber as well. So these guys that were responsible for assassinations now do cyber too. These are the guys that were responsible for the Whispergate malware that was deployed in the opening salvos of Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine, if you remember, and attacked the Ukrainian government infrastructures. And this matters. This matters because it means that it's not just cyber operations happening over here and physical attempts over there. No, these threat actors plan integrated operations where cyber and physical actions work together from day one. It's part of a hybrid plan. And now, after all this, I think that we can start and understand what hybrid threat actors are and see how this combined into a unified circle. And so if it is the case, let's try to complete the definition. So HTAs, hybrid threat actors, use cyber intrusion and disinformation as a preparatory stages to gather intelligence and manipulate targets, directly enabling physical harm like assassination attempts, surveillance, kinetic strike, sabotage, and more. And this creates a cycle where digital actions enable physical threats, which in turn amplify online influence and vice versa.
Thank you, Itay. I think, and this is now we're finishing up our talk, and I think if you take away one thing from our talk, it's not just that Iran does this, which is important, but I don't think that's the main point. I think the main point is that if you think historically about disinformation, influence, and online activities, you think about when this first appeared in our lives, right? You think about the Trump election 2016. We're now almost 10 years into this debate or social debate about who's in charge of social media and regulation. I think, to be really honest, now that we're nearing the 10 years, it's clear that the main paradigm of discourse that we've had in this field is not really accurate. And I don't think we need to be thinking about social media just through the lens of content moderation. I think we need you as cyber researchers to also start taking these things into account within a unified framework that understands that influence and disinformation is not just something that bothers, journalists who believe that facts matter, right? When I started writing about disinformation, it was only nonprofits doing kind of reports, investigations on social media. Today, it's my security service. And I think what we want to talk about and leave you with is this idea that there's a lacuna, a FIMI lacuna. FIMI is foreign intervention. And the lacuna stems from the fact that countries are scared to touch on social media, scared to touch on content. Cybersecurity researchers are historically, cyber has been somewhat content agnostic. It's not the most trivial thing for people, cybersecurity researchers, to touch into actual campaigns and kind of weigh in on debates that seem very content. And on the other hand, social media platforms that are somehow left to kind of take care of this for themselves and have constantly framed this as disinformation, as an authentic or inauthentic issue. Disinformation and influence, no matter how you think of them, are a national security issue. They penetrate into our reality, and there's a gap. There's a big hole in our security that we call the FIMI lacuna. And I think it's very important that we stop thinking about social media as a different aspect, and we stop thinking about kinetic violence as one different aspect and cybersecurity as its own domain. We need to start thinking about a unified threat circle. And we need your help in closing this FIMI lacuna, because we can't leave it to social media alone to regulate this threat. And there is a huge threat, and our case showed you how even people like me who do reporting about fake news can suddenly now get death threats, and it can metastasize and get further. So help us solve the FIMI lacuna. Thank you for your time. If anything was interesting for you, I'll talk a bit more about some of this stuff in our collaboration in my talk tomorrow about how media and cybersecurity research can collaborate. But thank you very much.